Asta of Hodge Village, an orphan commoner who, in a world run by magic, has none. Though even without it, he managed to gain a nice little set of techniques and abilities. And with the end of Black Clover's run, at least in Shonen Jump, and transferring to Giga with its first chapter having a further explanation of Asta's new ability, let's go over every technique and ability Asta possesses as of the end of the Jump run. Also, once the series finishes, there will be a linked video at the end that'll be an add-on explaining any new powers, forms, or abilities Asta has gained. So I'll make sure to make it known that the video is up to date with the title and the thumbnail. Alright, let's go. Probably wasn't something you'd think would show up here, but Asta is known for his obsession with training his body, as well as the abilities of his unique grimoire, which we'll get into. But like I said, Asta is a training addict. It's surprising his body hasn't crapped out on him considering the way he blitzes through exercises, so it's either anime logic, the juicy drinks actually working, or he's just straight up built different. And while we see that his physical strength alone wasn't enough to combat magic users in his fight against Revchi, we do see that his physicality does help him greatly in combating and overwhelming his enemies, and even just wielding his heavy weaponry. One scene/battle in specific that sticks out is when Asta's up against Voltos. Even whilst being fired at on all sides and wielding two heavy blades, one being a giant buster sword, Asta was still agile enough to dodge and maneuver around these omnidirectional attacks. He was able to sense the incoming attacks, how we'll get into later, but still, the fact that he's able to maneuver while being attacked on all sides and wielding both swords, one in each hand, is an amazing feat of strength. It goes to show that while his physical strength alone wouldn't be enough to rise up the ranks of the Magic Knights, all his hard work up until he gained his grimoire was not for nothing. Speaking of his grimoire, the Five-Leaf Grimoire, a tome that mysteriously appeared in front of Asta in his time of need, even with his lack of mana. Put up a counter because once again we'll go over how later. Like I said, the origins of this dark and tattered grimoire are at this point a mystery, which I'm surprised more people weren't constantly curious about even more than the Four-Leaf. My guess as to why is the fact that the Four-Leaf was wielded by the first Wizard King, and the rumors of the Four-Leaf spelling luck and being loved by the mana brought more attention to Yuno as its wielder. On the other hand, the Five-Leaf was tattered, unheard of, and its wielder had no mana. And we know how classes of people in Black Clover can be, your magic power being a big determiner of your status. But back to the grimoire itself, what does this Five-Leaf grimoire grant its wielder? Not that one. The first blade granted to Asta by the Five-Leaf is the Demon Slayer's sword, a giant buster sword cloaked with the power of anti-magic. The Demon Slayer has the ability to cut through and negate magic, a recurring theme with Asta's powers. Asta has also been seen reflecting attacks using the flat side of his blade. His sword is only made to cut through magic, meaning it's the same as a blunted weapon when used on a person, and in terms of the limits of anti-magic, if an attack is too powerful to show that Asta can be overwhelmed, meaning anti-magic is not all powerful in the face of magic. This cannot erase effects of magic that have already taken effect. Let's say if someone used a poison spell. If the spell has already taken effect and there are toxins running through your veins, at that point nothing can be done. On the other hand, if he shot a poison blast at Asta, he could deal with that no problem. The heaviness of the sword would make it difficult for most anyone to wield reliably if at all, and there's also the fact that it saps the magic of those who wield it due to being caked with anti-magic. But due to Asta's incredible physique and lack of magic, it makes him the absolute best person to wield it. Though while he has been seen able to move surprisingly fast while wielding the sword, it is still a massive blade, and there have been times where it is too unmanageable for dealing with swift and or numerous attacks, though his next blade well enough makes up for it. In his battle against one of the 8 shining generals of the Diamond Kingdom, Mars, Asta had to deal with being pelted by a quick succession of spinning blades. A tactic Mars devised specifically to exploit the downside of Asta's Demon Slayer. The blades were coming at him too quickly and varied in their trajectory for him to block with Demon Slayer. But then, he would happen upon what would become his second blade. Stabbed into the ground of a dungeon's treasure room, with Asta's feathered friend Nero perched atop it, was the Demon Dweller's sword. Also imbued with anti-magic, something you expect from all of Asta's swords, the Demon Dweller is a slimmer, more compact blade than Slayer. Its immediate uses include its much more manageable nature, allowing Asta to be able to combat and defend against faster attacks. Though on top of its generally slimmer build, it comes with its own special ability, that being the power to absorb magic. Friend or foe, Asta can absorb their magic attribute and fire it off as a slash. When this effect is used with an ally, their magic can be passively absorbed. When in combat against an enemy, this power can be used to cancel out an incoming attack and fire it back. Not that Asta ever uses this tactic, which he really should. It's a really useful blade beyond even the way he uses it in canon. Something Captain Yami taught Asta, ki sense being a specialty of the fighters from his homeland. In the fight against member and leader of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, Voltos and Licht, Yami taught Asta ki sense to be able to deal with Voltos' random attacks via his warping, and to be able to better manage against the speed of Licht's light magic. As Yami explains it,
a person's glance, their breathing, their scent, the way their muscles move, the hint of their presence, taken together, all of that living energy people give off, that's called ki.
He also explains it as using all 5 senses and visualizing something halfway between instinct and prediction. Ki allows for Asta to sense things around him from incoming attacks to his own flow of anti-magic, something that comes in handy for his next ability. It also helps defend against faster opponents like what Yami did against Licht. He admitted Licht was faster than him, but using ki, he's able to predict and respond to his attacks accordingly. Asta's first transformation. It's really coming to his own as a shonen protagonist. What is this black form? Well, it first appeared in Asta's battle with the Shining General Ladris. After Ladris absorbed the power of the Fire Spirit Salamander, Asta was no match. Having already been tired from the battle previous, on top of him not being able to keep up with Ladris' enhanced attacks, even while sensing them coming with ki. The Queen of Witches, seeing that he was about to lose, decided to help Asta, though this ploy was, in truth, a means for her own gain, wanting to see Asta's true strength with hopes to later manipulate him. She'd reveal that anti-magic constantly flowed through the demon's lair, a statement that could be applied to all Asta's swords, which would prevent those with magic from wielding them. She also revealed that she was able to manipulate her blood in Asta's body, which she transfused into him when she removed a curse from his arms. As for why, the reason being was that Asta was unconsciously emitting, but also shutting off the anti-magic power flowing from his swords into him. With her blood magic, she accelerated the flow, removing the limits on its output. As a result, much more anti-magic would rapidly flow through him, leading to a change in his appearance and amplifying his power.
Giving up!
Black Asta. In this form, in terms of his appearance, darkness climbs up his face and arm, as well as it manifesting as a horn and a wing. In terms of abilities granted by this form, versus extremely amped physical ability. All stats in terms of strength, speed, durability, and the like are amped to a whole new level. It should also be noted that this makes wielding a sword way easier. He also gains the ability to fly, even with only one wing. And while he's already fast enough in the air, he only becomes faster due to the third effect of entering this form, which is magic tracking. With rampant anti-magic flowing throughout his body is attracted to strong magic. If not careful, this could lead to Asta being dragged toward whatever strong magic is in the area. When controlled, it leads to faster pursuit of an enemy. Specific moves he uses in this form are Black Meteorite. Using a combination of flight, speed, and magic tracking, Asta charges at his opponent to slash or violently stab through them. Black Hurricane. Wielding his blades, Asta spins through the air like a hurricane as a way to attack and defend simultaneously. This form does come with its fair share of drawbacks though. On top of the already unwieldy magic tracking, the time Asta can stay in this form is very limited. It can only be accessed a limited amount of times without being first healed by an adequate recovery mage. This is because of the great physical strain it inflicts on Asta, the blowback of the form sending sharp pains and feelings of stress throughout his entire body. He does, as time passes, gain better mastery over this form, and learns to use ki sense to feel the flow of anti-magic through his blades, and let it circulate throughout his body, allowing him to access it willingly. Something else revealed in this arc by the Queen of Witches is that Asta's blades are, quote, the ruin remains of the swords wielded by the elf leader. Asta's third blade, and the one I believe to be his best, easily. Within a dungeon buried in the Gravity Rock Zone lies the base of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. During the Clover Kingdom's raid, Asta and Yuno both end up in front of the still awakening Licht, the true Licht. In front of him was a blade stabbed into the ground. After Asta and Yuno defeated 2 reincarnated elves in his presence, Licht, still not completely awakened, would move forward to support his fallen comrades, and to confront the 2 magic knights. He'd pull the sword out of the ground and seemingly purify it, the darkness and rust fading away and being replaced by a bright white sheen. The three engaged in their own bout, and right as the fight was about to reach its end, Asta was able to grab onto the demon dweller, imbuing it with anti-magic, and it becoming a part of his grimoire. But as to why I believe it's Asta's greatest sword, well, check out its ability. It has the ability to sever the cause and effect relationship of a spell. What does that mean? Well, let's look at an example straight from the manga. First I will say, normally with anti-magic, it's used to negate a spell. Though if a spell has already been cast and it has effects that last beyond the initial casting, there's nothing that can be done. You went over this earlier, right? Like when many in Asta's home village of Hodge were poisoned by a reincarnated elf. Asta tried to use the Slayer to erase the poison, but the spell had already taken its course, meaning the poison was already running through their veins, and the Slayer was useless here. But then, the Destroyer peeked out from Asta's grimoire on its own. With its cause and effect severing, an ability known as Casualty Break or Fate Release, he was able to make it as if the spell's casting never even happened. The reason why I think this ability makes Demon Slayer the greatest sword is that in terms of the effects of anti-magic, it is a sword that most opposes magic. Not to mention, the ability has great range that only grows, to the point where I see it as Asta's anti-monozone. A sword with the power to negate spells and make it as if they were never cast, laughs in the face of magic. Asta's final power-up pre-time skip. During the battle with the Devil Zagred, Asta's anti-magic started to rage out of control, him not being able to control the sudden, large, and sporadic flow of the stuff. Something that is retroactively explained by Asta's devil's feelings of rage at seeing another devil. This lack of control caused Asta to be at the whim of his blade, as it dragged him through the air similarly to when he first consciously went into his dark form. This even led to him, through no fault of his own, attacking allies.
Oh, my knee! How did you do that? How do you do that? Ow!
Though after being egged on by Yuno, Asta pushed past his limits and regained control over his power. He took the anti-magic floating around his blade and condensed it to take shape around his sword. This served to enlarge and elongate his blade, the Black Divider. Though it's not just his blade that changes, as we see Asta actually develop a second horn, showing that this greater flow of anti-magic just in general strengthened his black form, and was him using more of his devil's power overall. In this arc, we learn a great deal about the origins of Asta's grimoire. In Zagred's plan to create a 5-leaf clover, he reveals that for one to come into existence, the heart of one that wields a 4-leaf must be plunged into despair. So, he orchestrated the humans finding and massacring the elves. Also, Luke's heart would falter. He would succeed in the creation of the 5-leaf, and would be sealed away by Nero before he could claim his prize. That is, the first piece of the puzzle we gain in the mystery that is Asta's 5-leaf. But questions still remain, such as the power of anti-magic, and the devil who seemingly resides in its pages. Though that is all and everything that Asta gains before the time skip. As after the Elf arc, Asta and his fellow magic knights eventually learn of a threat of devils and those who wield their power that lie in the Spade Kingdom. So, with a selection of knights going to train in the Heart Kingdom, and the rest continuing to train in the Clover, Asta being in the former, these valiant mages train for half a year with the express goal of growing to be able to take on this threat.
Gotta awakening for the brand new world. Yeah. We gotta take you to the brand new world. To the brand new world. Gotta awakening for the brand new world. Get your hands up, baby. We gotta take you to the brand new world.
After the time skip, Asta gains a much greater control over his anti-magic. We actually see a little of the start of his training in the anime. Throughout these 6 months, through battling with the Spirit Guardians and great introspection on his abilities, he begins to gain better understanding and control of his anti-magic. At first, his mastery extended to swinging his blades of anti-magic and letting it flow through him. After his training, however, he learned to genuinely manipulate the power of anti-magic. He actually learns a good bit of new tricks, as well as better mastery of pre-time skip techniques. So let's go over them in the order that we see them. First, I'll go over a main component of many of Asta's new techniques, it being greater anti-magic control. This new mastery over anti-magic allows Asta to control and manipulate the anti-magic throughout his body and swords. With it, he can pull off many of his different techniques with greater ease and speed. He can also beckon his blades to him from a distance, similarly to Thor's Jonathan, and can summon them from his grimoire just by commanding them to appear. In terms of specific techniques, the first example of anti-magic manipulation we see Asta pull off: sword surfing. Whereas mages with magic would ride a broomstick, he had this. By manipulating the Slayer, he can fly around without having to go into his black form. Asta can now much more easily channel and control the power needed into Slayer to extend it. He can do it casually even, fitting it into the middle of attack patterns. The first time we see him do it post time skip, he does it in a base with no charge time. You can also increase the size to greater lengths than before. I know this physical ability before, so I'll just say real quick, Asta bulked up. He was ripped before, but now he's stacked. Using Demon Dweller, now instead of only being able to absorb magic, he's able to pour his own magic into the blade. It has the same effect as before, but now with anti-magic, which leaves him with a reliable long-distance attack. Black Asta. When we see Asta go into his dark form, it's clear how much he's improved with it, considering we only see it in one panel and then right after he drops right out of it, it's just fine. This shows he can easily drop in and out of the form before he experiences any of the drawbacks. Also point out that while they can be seen the first time he goes into the form, in his fight with Dante, Asta still has the second horn he grew when he first used Black Divider. Combo spell, Mirror Meteorites. Combining Ghosh's Mirror Magic, Mirror Brigade, and Asta's Black Meteorite, a small army of Astas fly toward the enemy using mono tracking, all trying to ram through at once. During Asta's one-on-one with Dante, after being thoroughly thrashed, the oldest of the Dark Triad would continue on to ram through Ghosh with a blade, wanting to coax the rage out of Asta, and in turn more of his strength, in which he succeeds completely.
I'm here with you, my precious little boy.
There it is. That's human nature.
This form still has the characteristics of Asta's normal dark form as its basis, but it also sports a tail, a third horn, and the darkness that wraps around his body would begin to bubble over, moving similarly to a raging flame. In terms of power, his strength and anti-magic power is greatly increased, with one of his slashes not only being able to cut through the pressure of Dante's gravity magic, which he previously was at the mercy of, but said slash also erased the increased gravity throughout the wider area. And keep in mind this was Slayer, not even Destroyer. Though as you could guess from this form being called Rabid, it comes at the cost of Asta's sanity and ability to reason, turning him into a beast focused only on attacking. It's also worth noting that this form came from more than just Asta's rage alone, as it also was fueled by the matching rage of his devil, who just as well wanted the utter destruction of the devil-possessed Dante, as he too had a grudge that sprouted from the actions of the devil within Dante. This is further seen when, while in Asta's inner world, Asta notes the devil's agitated state, with it looking similarly to the darkness surrounding Asta while rabid. After Asta regained his reason and Yami joined the fight against Dante, Asta realized he was holding his captain back due to his exhaustion and lack of power. To meet his captain's expectation to be able to assist him, he entered into his inner world to request more power from his devil. Unfortunately, said power wouldn't come free, as in order to gain greater strength from his devil, he needed to give something up. So Asta made a deal with his devil, giving up his right arm. Asta, before he made the deal, was extremely weakened, and when trying to go back into his dark form, the darkness barely ran up his arm, with both his wing and horn being much smaller and wimpier. After the deal, his darkness once again spread across his body, but only having 2 horns here, and his right arm was pitch black with red gashes in it, along with red fingers. The way Asta's devil describes the power of his right arm in the state is,
You should know that right arm isn't the same as it was back when I was just giving you a little power at a time. Now it's become power. You've got 50 seconds till your body gives out.
his power up only lasts for 50 seconds, but the power gained from it was great, allowing him to stand with his captain and against Dante. Also of note is that after the 50 seconds, while Asta's arm does look a little less volatile, the effects of the deal he made are still visible, his arm still being pitch black and with markings all over it. Though this arm isn't the only new thing Asta gets after the battle, as he now also wields. After Dante makes it so Asta cannot reach any of his 3 swords, Yami throws his katana, and Asta coats in the anti-magic radiating from his right arm at the time. After the battle, unbeknownst to Asta, the blade actually becomes a part of his grimoire. Meet the Demon Slasher Katana. This blade, which grows to become Asta's new go-to, has the ability of selective slashing, which is exactly what it sounds like. Asta verbatim describes the ability as, Demon Slasher chooses what to cut. It's a katana that doesn't cut what it wants to protect. This blade is different from Asta's other weapons, which are blended against things that aren't magic. This sword can choose to slash whatever it wants. You can also see an attack paying homage to one of Captain Yami's, Demon Slasher Infinite Slash Equinox. A slash that seemingly defies the laws of physics and reality to travel miles away in an instant, and slashing in half a much larger target. Maybe like its namesake, it's an ability that allows it to cut through space. Or maybe it just shows the extent of the ability to cut whatever it wants, being able to cut larger targets from far away. Either way, this gives Asta another long-range attack. Not that it's the first time we see Asta using long-range slashes with this blade, as you can also see him doing so against Noct. Lastly, before we move on to discuss Asta's next ability, I must ask, how in the world did Asta turn Yami's katana into part of his grimoire? I have many questions regarding Slasher. I mean, like, it's kind of a thing that, like, Asta can do that, but, like, can he, like, to the extent, how, what is it? Like, the only time we see something like this happen is Demon Destroyer, but Asta, not only was he in his black form at the time, but that doesn't really matter. Because that sword belonged to the 5-leaf, because it was another one of like swords. And I wonder, could he do that with more weapons and just put them in his grimoire? Like, does he really have a limit? Can he just keep doing that? Doesn't seem like he can. Or can't, rather. And there's also the fact that he gave the sword its own ability, which is really throwing me. Because, like, how can you just imbue the object with, like, your anti-magic? Can you just imbue objects with your magic, or anti-magic in this case, and put them in your grimoire? If so, that's insanely useful, because that's just a normal katana. Because like I said, this isn't really the first time something like this has happened, because all of Asta's blades originally belonged to Lick's sword magic, but the abilities they had were already there, just without the ability of anti-magic. So is the ability to turn objects into spells, or I guess in this case, sleps, an exclusive Asta's devil? Or maybe this was an ability of Lick's sword magic. If this is a Lick thing, then that means that either Lick at one point had a sword with selective slashing, or sword magic lets him insert weapons into the grimoire and abuse them with a random ability. Or maybe it's taken from Yami or something, I don't know, man. Hopefully someone in the comments can make this make sense. So yeah, help me out. I'm working with what I found. Warning, everything beyond this point is past where the anime ended. Manga spoilers ahead. After summoning Asta's devil, whose name we learn is Lieb, into the physical world from the 5-leaf, Asta battles against him, and eventually makes a deal with him to become equals, leading to a contract. This is the devil binding ritual, and from it, both Asta and Lieb gain a marking around their wrists. The ritual makes it so a devil possessed can make their devil's power their own. Normally it ends with the possessed subjugating their devil, not becoming buddy-buddy with them. But, you know, it's Asta, we love them for it. After 2 days of concentrating to correctly assimilate their power, in a battle against the demons sent to destroy the Clover Kingdom, the two pull off their perfect devil union. In terms of appearance, anti-magic forms around Asta's body as armor. Red markings line the entirety of his body, and a large crevice lie in his chest. He has 4 horns and 2 wings. He also has 2 markings running up the side of his face. He gains a tail and multiple orbs of sparkling anti-magic form around him. As for his eyes, they are red with black pupils in the shape of diamonds. In terms of abilities this form grants him, he gains symmetry. Something he never knew, always only having one side of his body covered. But genuinely, his strength similarly to the one-armed form embodies the whole of Lieb and his power. Also, the size of spells he can cut through is much greater. As we know that anti-magic isn't the end-all be-all against magic, but With the reaches of what he can negate being so much greater, it can genuinely seem like this power is infallible. There's also the fact that due to the entirety of his body being covered with full, unbridled anti-magic, a lot of magic won't work on him, whether the spell be friend or foe. We see both sides of this when the fused twin devils begin to become frustrated at their attacks not landing well on Asta, and with Yuno and Noct both being unable to back him up when in union. The power has a 5-minute time limit with an interval of 30 minutes. A 5-prong mark appears on his chest, a prong developing a circle in it every time a minute passes. This power is Asta's strongest and coolest looking ability. In this arc, we learn a great deal about Asta's devil and grimoire. Lieb was born in the underworld, being the lowest ranked devil possible as he had no magic. One day while being messed with by a higher ranked devil, which, not hard to be, the devil through Lieb tore the gate of the underworld, and went right through it due to not having magic. That landed him in the human world. He cared not about humans, but they feared him due to him being a devil, and multiple humans chased him away. He was able to escape, but by the time he got away, he was already tired and damaged, causing him to pass out. Due to his life being terrible, he was fine with death, but instead was patched up by a woman named Lichita, Asta's mother. We learned a lot about Lichita. First, that her magic ability is to take things that lack mana and seal them away into a container. Also, that she has the same ailment as Henry, where if she gets too close to someone with magic, she begins to drain their mana. Though like how Henry's ailment doesn't affect Asta, hers doesn't affect Lieb. Due to this ailment, she decided to seclude herself in an effort to not harm anyone, even giving up her son, Asta, to an orphanage. But due to this, she sees meeting Lieb, a devil with no magic, as fate, decides to raise him as her own. The two would form a bond of mother and son, glad that they could finally be able to find comfort in another. Though their happy days were abruptly ended by the highest ranked devil in the underworld, Lucifero. Said devil used Lieb as a host to partially manifest in the human world. Trying to save her son, Lichita grabbed onto Lucifero, quickly draining his magic by doing so. This proves to thwart the demon from taking her son's body, but she wasn't able to get off scot-free, Lucifero stabbing her through the chest in retaliation. As he disappeared, he threatened to try the same thing in the future. So with her dying breath, Lichita sealed Lieb into the 5-leaf grimoire. She had the tome for some time up until that point, as when she first met Lieb, she told him that she found it just the other day and wondered if it was due to some superstition regarding a 5th leaf being true. The superstition likely being that within the 5th leaf lie the devil. Lichita's hope in sealing Lieb was that after some time, Lucifero would give up looking for the connection with Lieb, and that as her son grew, he'd eventually be able to get out, and would grow to become capable enough to defend for himself. Years would go by, and Lieb would eventually develop the power of anti-magic while in the 5-leaf, but still had no way to escape. Until the 5-leaf grimoire chose Asta. Like all other grimoire, the 5-leaf chose its own wielder in Asta. You could say that this was an insane case of luck and coincidence, but I'd choose to see it as good judgment on the grimoire's part. With that, the rest is history. Asta gains more swords, Lieb tries to take his body, the devil binding ritual happens, and after all is said and done, the two actually become really close, seeing each other as brothers. Ain't that just precious? 1 year later. Devil Union is the last of Asta's power he gets before the second time skip. This one, instead of being a period of training, is more just natural progression. Not to say Asta isn't still training, other stuff is still happening, yeah, but it's not in the same vein as the 6 months. The period this skips to is where the story currently is. So, in the current story, what powers has our protagonist gained? First off, I gotta point out how Lieb just rides on Asta's shoulder all chibified. I do miss seeing full-size Lieb, but it's just precious, ain't it? Focused or condensed Devil Union is where Asta uses the Devil Union on one part of himself. Good ol' righty. This focuses the discharge of anti-magic and extends the time limit of Devil Union from 5 minutes to 10. It also makes the power of Devil Union denser and stronger. And while this power is focused on his arm, The rest of his body is still affected. Still his horns, wings, and his left arm is still darkened. Even still has the timer on his chest. And while he does lose all his badass armor, remember that anti-magic still radiates and courses throughout his entire body. So he's still got that going for him. After Asta is thoroughly thrashed by Lucius, and I mean just fucked physically and mentally, he gets blinked out of the Clover Kingdom and washes up on another country. And a whole other continent, in fact. Specifically, Yami's homeland, the Land of Sun. As he mentioned when he first saw Asta, Ki senses something Yami picked up from his homeland. While here, preparing to re-up on that disastrous fade Lucius doled out on him, Asta was bent toward in the ways of Zen. Ryuya, Shogun of the Land of Sun, and Ichika, a member of the Ryuzen 7, the land's 7 most powerful mages, were the ones to tutor him in the method. Quick reminder, Ki is the flow of life energy. Ryu says everyone unconsciously manipulates it when using magic. Zen is a conscious, super precise version of that, making it all erupt at once. Asta likens it somewhat to mana skin, the technique of wrapping yourself in a layer of mana as protection, and then radiated. Instead of using magic, Asta uses the flow of anti-magic inside of him. He's able to pull off the technique on his first try, if a little unpolished due to his already there foundation with Ki. Zen is used as a way to push out a full power strike when you see an enemy's opening, and it can be applied in different ways per user. After learning to master Zen, having trained with Mushogatake, another Ryuzen 7, Asta develops his ultimate counter. Combining the pinpoint and concise nature of Zen with his anti-magic, not to mention a sharp and active Ki sense, Asta develops his anti-magic counter-strike. The way it's described is, his anti-magic Zen lets him move after his opponents tip their hand, and win no matter what. During his Zen training, Ryuya brings up an interesting concept to Asta. A possible new technique he thinks he'd be able to pull off after improving his anti-magic manipulation through his Zen training. He wonders if Asta could lend the power of anti-magic to others, similarly to how he lends it to objects, like Yami's blade. Ryuya likens it to a reverse of Demon Dweller's ability. When done, this leaves the receiver with pseudo anti-magic, Asta's anti-magic intertwining with their magic. This leaves them with an extremely limited pool to work with, but in return, their magic gains the attributes of anti-magic, such as tracking strong mana and eating through magic. And I'll be the first to admit, it's kinda weird. This is because anti-magic clearly should not be compatible with magic at all. It eats away and negates it. Objects don't have magic, unless they do, but Yami's sword, not that one doesn't have magic. I think it might have made more sense if it was something like he lends his allies anti-magic, but in return, they don't have a limited pool of this pseudo anti-magic, instead just getting the power of anti-magic along with their normal powers, having to work really fast because the anti-magic's eating away at their power. Or maybe they could have all gotten anti-magic wands that they just wield like Asta's swords. Saps their power but isn't eating it at the source. Just thought of that one. Also, with this new pseudo anti-magic, they get cool new designs. I like Zora's. And with that, that's all of Asta's powers and abilities we have witnessed so far. I suppose one other thing to mention is maybe sword skill, considering I included strength and stamina. He did train under a master and we saw how much he's developed after witnessing and learning from many other different swordsmen. But any others, tell me what I might have missed. And of course the series isn't finished, but again, like I said, I'm going to make an unlisted continuation video linked at the end of this one when new powers or abilities come out. So yeah, here's some more Black Clover. Thought about adding the movie stuff, but I was like, it's not really a sword. He's got it for like a second. I was like, you know, I know I did like the one arm deal and, you know, the rabbit form, and he only had those for like a second, but I was like, so I didn't include that. I thought about it. I was gonna include it like right around where the time skip happens, before like the stuff post time skip happens, because like that's where the movie takes place, but I decided not to. Maybe I should have. I won't. Probably. I was gonna say, tell me in the comments if I should add it. I don't think I will, but yeah. But if there's anything you should take away from this video, it's that Asta and fun-sized Lieb shots are adorable, but I wish we saw more king-sized Lieb. Asta should start using non-condensed double union more, because he hasn't at all in the final arc, even though it clads him in stylish-ass anti-magic armor. And, Ichika's best women. Though you should probably be taking a greater knowledge away of Asta's abilities. Whatever.